Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Gaia, also known as Granny Gaia on TikTok, Instagram, and of course here on YouTube. I share all of my designs on my YouTube channel and I make tutorials for them so you can follow step by step and make them yourself. So if you do like crochet tutorials and crochet vlogs, be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Today's tutorial is on this really pretty cardigan. This is a made-to-measure tutorial, so you can use any yarn and any hook you want. The sizing is completely customizable. However, I do provide my own stitch counts and my own measurements, just in case you want to use it as reference. I actually made this cardigan for one of my best friends, and I did make a vlog documenting the whole design process and the process of me making it, so if you would like to check that out, it is on my channel. This cardigan does have slightly flared sleeves, but if you do not want your sleeves to be flared and if you want it to be more of a straight sleeve like this, then you can skip the part where I add increases to flare out the sleeves. And you can just continue making rows and rows of normal half double crochet. You can also adjust the length of this to however long or short you want it to be. I hope you enjoy making this cardigan, and if you do have any questions, let me know in the comments, or you can message me on Instagram with pictures to help you explain what your issues are, and I will do my best to answer and help you out. In today's tutorial, I'll be using this yarn. This is a 4-ply milk cotton yarn. It is equivalent to a DK weight or number 3 weight yarn. But you can use any yarn you want because this is a made-to-measure tutorial. Same thing goes for the hook. You can use any size, but I am using a 4mm hook. You'll also need a darning needle, some stitch markers, and a tape measure. Okay, first we need to take our bust measurement, so that's also known as our chest circumference. You're going to take your tape measure. Okay, this is how you want to measure your bust. Since I'm making this for a custom order, the person I'm making it for has a bust circumference of 33 inches. So I'm going to take that number, 33, and divide it by 4. So that's 33 divided by 4, which gives me 8.25 inches. So that's going to be the width of my front panel. Our front panel is going to be 8.25 inches wide. To start, we're going to chain the width of our front panel that we just calculated. So start with a slip knot. And I'm going to chain the width. So for me, I'm going to make a chain that is 8.25 inches long. I recommend you make your chains slightly looser because usually the beginning chain tends to not stretch as much as the rest of the stitches. So just make your beginning chain slightly looser. Okay, so my chain measures about 8.25 inches. Once you've chained the width of your front panel, you're going to add another 2 extra chains. These are going to be our turning chains. And now I'm going to start making half double crochets into every chain. So yarn over, skip these 2 chains we just made because there are turning chains. And into the 3rd chain, we are going to insert our hook, pull up a loop, and with 3 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So that's our first half double crochet stitch, and I like to mark the very first stitch just to make it easier for me in the next row. Okay, so continue doing that all the way down, yarn over, insert your hook into the next chain, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, one more time, yarn over, go into the next chain, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on your hook. So there I've just made 3 half double crochet stitches. 1, 2, 3. Continue doing this all the way down. Once you have finished making your last half double crochet, you're going to chain 2. Turn your work, and we're going to place 1 half double crochet stitch in each stitch all the way across. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on your hook. and that is your first half double crochet stitch of our second row. Continue to do this, so yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over again, and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, continue to do this all the way down. If you are a beginner and you struggle to differentiate between the stitches, then I do recommend you mark every first stitch of each row just to ensure you're not skipping or adding any extra stitches. Okay, I am making it to my last stitch of the row. So just making that last half double crochet. When you reach the end, you're just going to chain 2, turn your work, and you're going to keep making 1 half double crochet stitch all the way along, just like we did in our previous rows. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch, pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, so just like we've been doing, continue making your half double crochets all the way until the end of your row. So we're just going to continue making rows and rows of half double crochet until we reach our decrease point. What I mean by decrease point is the point where you want the tie to be. So I've done some rows of half double crochet so far. When you measure it, make sure that you align the end of your cardigan to where you want the end of your cardigan to be. So for me, I want it to be around here. And then since I want my tie to be here, this is the row that I'm going to do my decreases. So that's what I mean by decrease point. So here is where I want my ties, so I'm going to stop making the normal half double crochet rows at this point. So make enough rows of half double crochet until it reaches your decrease point, or the point where you tie your cardigan. For me, I made a total of 44 rows, and on row 45 is where I'm going to make my decrease. So this is my 45th row, and I'm going to start making my decrease. And for me, this measures about 15 inches. Okay, so to decrease, you're going to make sure you have 2 stitches left. I'm going to yarn over, insert my hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop. So now we have 3 loops on our hook, yarn over again, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and now with 5 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through all 5 loops on your hook. So that is our first decrease stitch. Now we are going to chain 2, turn our work, and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way across. So for this row, we are not going to make decreases. Yarn over, insert your hook into the first stitch, and make a half double crochet. Okay, continue making this all the way down. I do recommend you mark with a stitch marker the side where you want your decrease to be. So I'm just going to mark the row that I started decreasing. Okay, this is just to help us remember that every time we are coming up to this side of our panel, we know that we have to make a decrease. So on the opposite side here is going to be straight, and we won't be making any decreases. Okay, so to continue, just keep making your half double crochets until you reach the end of your row. I made my last stitch of the row, no decreases on this side, so just make your half double crochets like normal. Chain 2, turn your work, and make 1 half double crochet stitch all the way down until you have 2 stitches left. And that's where we're going to make our decrease, because as you see, we marked with our stitch marker that when we reach this side, we need to make a decrease. Start off by making your normal half double crochets, and when you get to the end of your row, make a decrease. I'm at the end of my row, I have 2 stitches left, so I'm going to make a decrease. So yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop. Now you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and now you have 5 loops on your hook. We're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Chain 2, turn your work, and carry on making your half double crochets all the way to the end of your row. I've made it to the end of my row. I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way across until I have 2 stitches left. And then I'm going to make a decrease. To make your decrease, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over again, insert your hook into the last stitch, pull up a loop, and with 5 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook to make a decrease. Chain 2, turn your work, and make 1 half double crochet all the way along. Okay, so you can start to see the decreases making a slanted neckline. So this is exactly what we want here. And I hope you can also see the pattern. So every other row, you're going to make a decrease. So basically every time you come up to the side where there's a stitch marker, you're going to make a decrease. Continue making these alternating decrease rows until it reaches your shoulder. So you're going to make enough rows until it reaches your shoulder like this. So when you're measuring it, make sure you position the end of the cardigan to where you want it to end, and make sure you position the decrease point to where you want the tie to be, and your last decrease row should reach your shoulder. So for me, counting from my first decrease row, it measures about 6 inches, and for my decrease rows, I have a total of 18 decrease rows. And at this point, counting from the very first row all the way up until my last decrease row, I have 62 rows. It also measures about 20.5 inches. So now for the shoulder part, I'm going to add an extra 3 inches worth of half double crochet rows. But since we are making a front and a back panel, we'll need to divide that measurement by 2. So for me, that's 3 divided by 2, which gives me 1.5 inches. So that means for the front panels, I'll have to add 1.5 inches worth of just regular rows of half double crochet, no increases, no decreases. And I'll have to add another 1.5 inches worth of normal half double crochet rows to the back panel as well, which I will show you how to do. But for now, for the front panel, since I need to add 1.5 inches more, I'm just going to measure my stitches here and see how many rows I need to make for it to reach 1.5 inches. Just measuring from here until 1.5 here. So that's about 4 rows for me. So I'm gonna add an extra 4 half double crochet rows. Now for this shoulder part, universally, you should be able to add on 3 inches in total shared between the back and front panel. But if you are making a larger size, then I do recommend you add a couple more rows. Okay, before we begin, I'm just gonna mark that very last decrease row I did so that I don't have to keep counting until I have my extra 4 rows. To continue, you're going to chain 2, turn your work, and we're going to make a half double crochet stitch in every single stitch all the way to the end. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, and like normal, once you reach the end of your row, make your last half double crochet, chain 2, turn your work, and continue making your half double crochets. So, like I said, I'm going to make an extra 4 rows. I'll meet you back again when I finish those 4 rows. Okay, so I've added my extra 4 rows, and now I can chain 1 and cut off my yarn. Pull to tighten, and now you have completed your first front panel. So what you're going to do is make another front panel exactly the same as this one, the same stitch count, the same measurements, everything exactly the same. So you'll have 2 front panels. Now for the back panel, we're going to take our bust measurement or our chest circumference. Mine was 33 inches, so I'm going to divide that number by 2. So for me, that's 33 divided by 2, which gives me 16.5 inches. So 16.5 inches is going to be the width of my back panel. So we're going to start off by making a chain that measures the width of our back panel. Here, the chain I'm making now, we're going to slip knot first, and then we're going to start making our chains. This chain is going to be 16.5 inches long. Okay, so my chain here measures about 16.5 inches. Now for the turning chain, I'm just going to make an additional 2 chains. Okay, so then now I can start crocheting. So I'm going to yarn over, skip the 2 chains, and into the 3rd chain, I'm going to make a half double crochet. Okay, again, it's always useful to mark your very first stitch of the row. Okay, so continue making half double crochets all the way along the chain. So once you reach the end of your row, you're going to chain 2, turn your work, and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way across. For the back panel, we will just continue making rows and rows of half double crochet until we reach the same number of rows we did for our front panel. Make sure that you make your back panel the same length as your front panel up until the shoulder part. So you remember how at the front panel we did an extra 1.5 inches for the shoulder. So we're not going to count those extra rows that we did. So counting from the very first row all the way up until the last decreased row, or the row before we added our extra rows for the shoulder. So for me, I have a total of 62 rows, not counting my extra 4 rows that I did for the shoulder part. Okay, so that means for my back panel, I'll need to do 62 rows. So remember, when you reach the end of a row, chain 2, and then you can just continue making your rows of half double crochet. Okay, so I have finished making my rows of half double crochet for the back panel. As you can see, if I measure it against my front panel here, this is my extra 4 rows I did for the shoulder part. So my back panel, I've made enough rows until it reaches just before I started those extra 4 rows, because now we're going to add those extra 4 rows, but only in sections on the edges of our back panel. So first thing you want to do is take your front panel and you're going to count the number of stitches you have at the shoulder part here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21,
22, 23 stitches. So what I'm going to do with that number now is count 23 stitches from the edge here and mark the 23rd stitch.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21,
22, 23. Okay, I'm going to do that same thing to the other side. So count 23 stitches from this side and mark the 23rd stitch. Okay, now we have marked our 23rd stitch from both sides. I'm going to continue with my back panel. Okay, so at the end of the row, chain 2, turn your work, and we're going to make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way until we reach our stitch marker. So yarn over, insert your hook into that first stitch and make a half double crochet. Okay, keep going until you reach the stitch marker. Okay, I'm coming up to my stitch marker, making my last half double crochet stitch, and then we're going to chain 2, turn your work, and we're going to make 1 half double crochet stitch all the way down until we reach the end of our row. Okay, so like we've been doing, insert your hook into that first stitch and make a half double crochet. Okay, reaching the end of my row, and we're going to chain 2, turn our work, and just continue making half double crochets until you reach the same number of shoulder rows you did for your front panel. So here's my front panel. I did 4 extra rows. So that means here I need 4 extra rows as well. I've done making my rows and now I'm just going to chain 1 and cut off my yarn. Pull to tighten and you're done with one side. So now we're going to do the same exact thing on the opposite side here, but since we don't have our yarn already joined, we're gonna have to join our yarn to this side. So look here and pick up your first stitch. Mine is right here. Then take your yarn and pull it through. Then I'm going to make a knot to secure it. And then going into that same stitch we just went into, I'm going to pull up a loop, chain 1, and now we can start making our half double crochets. So yarn over and go into that same stitch again to make our first half double crochet. And then continue making 1 half double crochet all the way until you reach your stitch marker. And again, when you reach your stitch marker, you can take it off and make your last half double crochet. Then chain 2, turn your work and make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way to the end. Okay, so we're basically doing the same exact thing we did on the opposite side. So just continue making the same number of rows that you did for this shoulder part here. 4 rows here for me and 4 rows here for me. Okay, once you're finished with your shoulder rows, you are not going to cut off your yarn, so just continue. And then we are now going to connect the front and back panels together by the shoulder part. So taking your front panel, you also want to make sure that when you are lining this up together, you have the shoulder parts together, and also make sure that the decreasing part is facing on the inside of the sweater. You do not want it to be like this, okay? Because then you are sewing up your seams wrongly. So make sure the decreasing part here is in the inside of the sweater, so not facing outward. And we're going to sew them up together. Okay, so to do that, I'm just going to start by chaining 1. And I'm just going to turn my work. Now we are going to insert our hook into the first stitch of this panel. This is my back panel. And then on the opposite side, which is our front panel, I'm going to go into the first stitch as well. So right here, it's my first stitch. Then I'm going to slip stitch. So we're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on our hook. Okay, so that's our first slip stitch. I'm going to do the same thing. Insert your hook into the next stitch of the back panel and insert your hook into the next stitch on the opposite side into your front panel. Yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, show you one more time. Insert your hook into the next stitch of the back panel and insert your hook into the next stitch of the front panel. Then yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. So do that all the way down until you reach the end. Okay, I'm coming up to my last stitch. Okay, slip stitch. There we go, that's what you should have so far. Now I'm going to chain 1 and cut off my yarn. Pull to tighten. Your panels have been connected. So this is the right side, this is what it should look like. So now do the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to turn my work again, take my other side, my other front panel, line it up correctly, making sure that the V-neck decrease point is towards the inside. And now I'm just going to add my yarn to this side right here. So to do that, I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch of this front panel here. Then grab my yarn, pull it through, make a knot, insert my hook into that same stitch, and then I'm going to pull up a loop, chain one, and now we can start connecting our panels. Okay, so just like we did on the other side, I'm going to insert my hook into the first stitch of my front panel, and then insert my hook into the first stitch of my back panel. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on my hook. Okay, that's our first slip stitch. Continue doing that, so insert your hook into the next stitch of the front panel, and then insert your hook into the next stitch of the back panel. Yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, so just like we've been doing for the other side, we'll do the same exact thing to this side. I am at my last stitch, so inserting my hook into both the panels and making my last slip stitch. Okay, chain one and cut off your yarn. Pull to tighten and you are done connecting both of your panels. Okay, now you're going to try this on and we're going to mark where we want our sleeves to be. So basically how wide we want our armholes to be. When you're trying it on, make sure that the seam is at the top of your shoulder. Make sure that the back and the front are both at the same level. Then you're going to take your stitch marker and just estimate how big you want your armhole to be. So for me, I want mine to be about this big, like this. So I'm going to take my stitch marker and I'm just going to mark the front panel here. So that's how big I want my armhole to be. Once you have marked your armhole, we are now going to count the number of rows we have, starting from our stitch marker all the way up to the shoulder seam. So for me, I'm going to count this as my first row. So 1,
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
21, 22, 23. Okay, so I have 23 rows for my armhole. And now I'm going to just flip over to the back side of it and I'm going to count 23 rows and mark that 23rd row so we have both sides marked. Okay, so once you've got one side marked, you're going to do the same exact thing on the opposite side here. So count 23 rows or however many rows you have. So count the same number and mark both sides. Once you have marked both sides, we are going to start by seaming up the sides here. So we're gonna sew these sides together up until our stitch marker. So you can choose to start on any side. For me, I'm choosing this side, and we're going to start by adding our yarn. I'm going to insert my hook into the first row. So this here is my first row. So I'm going to insert my hook into the first row right here. Then I'm going to take my yarn and I'm going to pull it through. Then I like to just tie a knot to secure the yarn. Insert your hook into that same area you just did. And now you're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. We're going to chain one. And now we're going to sew up the sides. Okay, so let me just explain how we're going to do this. So along the side here is the edge of our work, and there's no determined stitches per se. So we'll just have to make a single crochet in each row. What I mean by that is if you just look here, this is one row, and this is another row, and this is another row, and so is this one. So we're gonna add a single crochet into each one of these rows. Okay, so go into your first row. I'm going to go into that same spot I did when I tied the yarn. And then I'm also going into the first row on the opposite side. You can see this is my first row here. So I'm going to insert my hook into that first row, and we're going to do a single crochet. So yarn over, pull through the first two loops, and you should have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over again and pull through the 2 remaining loops on your hook. That is your first single crochet. Okay, so we're going to make a single crochet all the way down until we reach our stitch markers. I'll show you again. So my next row is here. I'm going to insert my hook into that second row. And then on the opposite side, you're going to insert your hook into the second row as well. So this was my first row. That means this will be my second row. Okay, and now make a single crochet. So yarn over and pull through 2 loops on your hook. And with the remaining 2 loops on your hook, you're going to yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. I'll show you again. This is my third row. Insert my hook into the next row. And insert my hook into the next row on the opposite side as well. And then yarn over, pull through 2 loops, then yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, continue doing this. I'll show you one last time. This is my next row. Now we are on our 4th row, so this is my next one. Insert my hook into the 4th row, and then on the back panel I will also insert my hook into the 4th row. Then make my single crochet by yarning over, pulling through both loops, and then yarn over and pull through 2 loops again. So we're going to continue doing that all the way until we reach our stitch markers. So I'm coming up to my stitch markers. I have 2 stitches left to make because I have 2 rows left to go into. So this is my 1 row, and then this is my last row I go into. So I'm going to go into that next row on both sides. Then make my single crochet. And then this is my last row, which is where the stitch markers are at. So I'm just going to remove them. And I'm going to insert my hook into that next stitch or next row, making sure to get both sides. Then making a single crochet. Okay, so this is what you should have so far. This is what your seam should look like, and then on the right side it should look like this. Okay, now I'm just going to put a stitch marker in this loop here that we left off from because we need to turn this inside out. I also recommend you try this on and make sure that you like how wide your armhole is, because after this we're going to start working in rounds, creating our sleeve. So turn this inside out and try it on. If you want your sleeve hole to be bigger, then you can undo some stitches, and if you want your sleeve hole to be tighter, you can sew up more stitches together. Okay, once you have turned it inside out, you should have the right sides facing you so we don't see the seam anymore. And this might be obvious to some, but just a reminder to put your yarn through as well once you flip it inside out, just so that you can work easily with your yarn. We're now going to start working on our sleeves, so take out the stitch marker and insert your hook into that loop. We are now going to work in the round. So first thing we're going to do is place 1 half double crochet stitch in every row. So again, we are working in the edge of our project, so there's no defined stitches to go into, so we're just going to put a half double crochet stitch in each half double crochet row. First, to start, we're going to chain 2, and now I'm going to place a half double crochet stitch in each row. My first row is here, this row right here. So yarn over and place a half double crochet in that first row. Okay, now I like to mark this very first stitch because it can get confusing when we come to it in the next round. Okay, so continue. So my next row is here into this next row, making a half double crochet. Okay, and then my next row is here, yarn over, insert my hook, and make a half double crochet. Okay, so just like we did when we were seaming up the sides of our top. Okay, continue doing this all the way around until you reach the end, or when you reach your stitch marker. Now, when you come up to this seam, we're just going to treat it as another row. So here my next row would be the seam. So I'm just going to insert my half double crochet stitch into the seam, just like so, and then we continue like normal. So my next row is this. Okay, then my next row is here. So we just continue like normal after treating the seam as just another row. I'm almost at the end of my round, so just take a look here. I just want to show you so you can tell when your last stitch should be or where it should be. So if we remember, this is my very first stitch of the round, and I placed it into this row right here. Okay, so that means my last stitch will be in this row right here, because we already placed a stitch in this row, which was our very first stitch. So my last stitch will be the row above it. Making my last half double crochet stitch, and now we're going to join the round. So remove your stitch marker and insert your hook into the very first stitch, so where your stitch marker was, just insert it, and then we're going to make a slip stitch. So yarn over and pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, so now we have joined our row. So now to start the beginning of our next row, we're going to chain 2, and we're going to turn our work. It is very important when you're making your sleeves in the round to turn your work every single row so that you get a straight seam. So now we're just going to continue making 1 half double crochet stitch all the way in the round. So my first half double crochet stitch will be right here. Yarn over and insert your hook into that very first stitch. Again, I like to mark this very first stitch just for convenience. If you are a beginner, I do recommend you mark your very first stitch because it can be confusing. Okay, so continue making 1 half double crochet all the way around. am coming up to the end of my round, so I'm going to place my last 2 half double crochets, and then I'm going to slip stitch join into that very first stitch, so that's why I marked it in the beginning. You're going to insert your hook into that very first stitch and slip stitch. Okay, now you're going to chain 2, turn your work, and make 1 half double crochet all the way around, just like we did before. From now on, we're just going to continue making rows and rows of half double crochet in the round. Don't forget to chain 2 and turn your work at the beginning of each round. You're going to make enough rows until it reaches your elbow here. Just when it about hits your elbow, we're going to start making increase rows. And the reason why we do that is so that we can have a slightly flared sleeve towards the bottom. If you don't want a flared sleeve and you just want it to be a straight sleeve like this all the way down, then you can just continue making rows and rows of half double crochet just like normal all the way down until your desired length. But if you do want a slightly flared effect like this sleeve here, we are going to start increasing when the sleeve hits at about our elbow. So for me, I did a total of 32 rows up until this point, and it also measures about 10.5 inches. So from now on, the pattern repeat is going to be 1 row of increase and 1 normal row with no increases or decreases. So the next row is going to be a increase row. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by chaining 2, turn my work, and I'm going to make 1 half double crochet in every stitch all the way across until I come to the end, because at the end, at the very last stitch, you're going to add 1 extra half double crochet stitch. So begin by making your half double crochets like normal all the way until the end. I am at the end of my round. I have 1 more stitch to go into, and in this very last stitch, I'm going to place 2 half double crochets. So this is my first half double crochet, and then I'll place 1 more in that same stitch, just like that, so that is our increase. Now we're going to slip stitch back into that first stitch of the round to join, then chain 2, turn your work, and make 1 half double crochet in every stitch all the way around until you reach the end. This time we're not going to make any increase stitches. Made my last stitch of the round. This is not an increase round, so we're just going to slip stitch into that first stitch of the round to join, then chain 2, turn your work, and now we're going to make a increase row. So make 1 half double crochet all the way around until you have 1 stitch left, and in that very last stitch you're going to place 2 half double crochets. I've made it to the end of my increase round, and now in this very last stitch I'll place 2 half double crochets like so, and then slip stitch into that first stitch to join the round, chain 2, turn my work, and now I'm going to make 1 half double crochet in each stitch all the way around, not making any increases. So we're just going to alternate between making an increase at the very end and no increase. So continue alternating between these 2 rows until you reach your desired length. Okay, once you have finished making your rows until it reaches your desired length, we can slip stitch, chain 1, and cut off our yarn. So here I'm at my last row, and I'm just going to slip stitch into that first stitch of the round, chain 1, cut off my yarn, and pull to tighten, and your sleeve is finished. So For me, counting from the very first row that I made that increase, I did a total of 28 rows. So from counting my first increased row all the way to the end, it is 28 rows. And that measurement in inches is about 9 inches. And my entire sleeve length measures about 19.75 inches. Okay, so now you're going to do the same exact thing on the other side to make your other sleeve. So I've already completed making both of my sleeves, but just as a little guide, you're going to join your yarn to the bottom of the side here, and you're going to stitch up your seam. Then you're going to create that armhole, and then in rounds you create your sleeve. Okay, so do that again to the other side so you have both sleeves complete. And after that, we are going to work on the neckline just to kind of give this edge a more cleaner look. And we are also going to make the tie straps. You want to start by making sure your work is turned right side out so you are not able to see the seams. And I'm going to insert my yarn into this seam right here. The reason why I choose to do it at the seam is because this seam is at the side, so it's less likely for others to see this. So I just think it looks neater when we start at the seam. I'm going to choose this side right here, turn my work so we can work on this more comfortably. Okay, so here is the seam, and I'm just going to insert my hook right into the center here, like so, and then grab my yarn, pull it through, tie a knot to secure, then reinsert my hook into that same area we just made the knot. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop, then chain one, and now we can start crocheting. I'm going to make half double crochets all the way along our border here. So to start, we're going to yarn over, insert our hook into that same stitch that we just made our first loop, and pull up a loop with 3 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all to make a half double crochet. Again, just for convenience, I like to mark that first stitch. We're going to be working into these chains here, making 1 half double crochet in each chain. Okay, now coming up to the end here, continue making your half double crochet stitches. And when you reach that end, I'm just going to place 1 half double crochet in that last chain. And then I'm going to chain 2. Then we're going to work along this edge right here. We're going to place 1 half double crochet stitch in each row. My first row is here, which is the one I just made. So yarn over, insert my hook into that first row. And make a half double crochet. Just like so, and then continue making 1 half double crochet in each row. So my next row is here. Insert my hook into that next row and make a half double crochet. Okay, so you're going to do this all the way down until you reach your decrease point, which is where you want the ties to be. So decrease point is basically here where we made our V-neck line. So I want the ties to go here, so I'm going to continue making my half double crochets in every row until I reach my decrease point right here. If you want, you can mark it with a stitch marker just so that you don't forget where it is. Also make sure to count your rows so that this decrease point is even on both sides. So what I would do is count, starting from the seam, how many rows I have from the seam to the stitch marker, and make sure I have the same number of rows on this side as well so that it's even. Okay, so I'm going to continue making my half double crochets in every row until I reach my decrease point. Okay, so I have reached my stitch marker, and the next row I need to go into is the one that the stitch marker is in. So I'm just going to remove the stitch marker, and I'm going to place one half double crochet in that next row. Okay, now I'm going to chain the length of the tie strap. So however long you want your tie strap to be, you're going to chain that amount. I made 70 chains. It measures about 15.5 inches. So once you have made your chain, you're going to chain one more extra as our turning chain. And now we're going to make one slip stitch in every chain. To make a slip stitch, skip that first chain we just made and into that second chain. Insert your hook, yarn over, and pull through all the loops on your hook. That's your first slip stitch. So continue doing that, insert your hook into the next chain, yarn over, and pull through both loops on your hook. Okay, continue doing this all the way down your chain. Okay, I am coming up to the end of my chain. I have one more chain left to go into, so making my last slip stitch. After you make your last slip stitch into the last chain, we can go back to placing one half double crochet in each row. But before we do that, we're just going to slip stitch one more time to sort of anchor down the strap. So I'm going to go into that same row that we did when we started this chain. So my last stitch was here, so I'm going to go into that same area and slip stitch to sort of anchor down our strap here first. And then now we can go back to placing one half double crochet in each row. So my next row is here. Yarn over, insert your hook, and make a half double crochet. Okay, and then we're just going to continue making one half double crochet in every row, just like we've been doing. You're going to do that all the way around until you reach your next decrease point. So I've marked mine with a stitch marker. And when you come up to this seam part here, you're going to treat it as another row. So when you finish making your one half double crochet stitch in this row, you're going to make one more into this seam, treating it as just like another row, and then continue to the next row. Now when you reach this back panel part here where we have actual stitches we can work into, then I'll show you how to do that. So I have just made my last half double crochet here. This was my last one into this row, and my next half double crochet stitch will go into this row right here. So yarn over and make a half double crochet, and now we get into these stitches here. So I just want you to see where we should place our next half double crochet stitch. So you might be tempted to put it in this larger hole here, but actually we're going to start putting it in this stitch here. And the reason why is because we have already made a stitch in this row. So I'm just going to yarn over and place my next half double crochet in my next stitch here. Okay, and then we're just going to continue making one half double crochet in each stitch all the way across. Now I am coming up to the other corner here where we start to transition into making one half double crochet into each row instead of into each stitch. So just continue making your half double crochets until you reach this corner. And once you do reach this corner, I'm going to place my half double crochet in the rows instead. So my next half double crochet stitch is going to be placed in this row right here. So yarn over and insert my hook into that row and make a half double crochet. Okay, now we're just going to continue making 1 half double crochet into each row until we reach our decrease point. So my next row is this row right here. Again, remember to treat this seam as just another row. Okay, now my next row is the stitch marked row, so my decreased row. So now I'm just going to remove that. I'm going to make a half double crochet stitch in that row. Now I'm going to chain the same number I did for the first strap that we made. So I did 70 chains, and then I made 1 extra chain as my turning chain. So in total, I made 71 chains. Okay, I've made my chains, including my turning chain, and we're just gonna make our slip stitches. So into that second chain, insert your hook and pull up a loop and pull through all the loops on your hook to make a slip stitch. So continue making slip stitches all the way down your chain. Just like how we did for the other string, when you make your last slip stitch into your last chain, we are going to slip stitch again into the same stitch as the previous one. So mine will be right here. So I'm just going to insert my hook into that same area and make a slip stitch to anchor down our chain. And now we can continue making 1 half double crochet in each row all the way until we reach the end. So the end being our very first stitch that we made, which I marked with a stitch marker. So it should be around one of the seams because that's where we started. Okay, when you come up to the corner like this, remember to chain 2. So I'm just going to place my last half double crochet in the row here. Okay, once you're done, chain 2. And now we're going to work along this beginning chain that we made. So make a half double crochet in each chain all the way along. When you come up to this bottom seam here, what I'm going to do is just crochet into the chains like normal and treat this seam as another stitch. So I'm just going to insert my hook into the seam. Make a half double crochet and then continue along making my half double crochets into these chains. Coming up to the end here, I've reached my stitch marker. So now I'm just going to place 1 more half double crochet into this chain. This will be my last stitch, and I'm just going to slip stitch into that first stitch that we marked, like so. Then chain 1 and cut off your yarn. Pull to tighten and you are finished. Okay, so now you have finished making your little border around the neckline and also your straps. So the only thing left to do is weaving in all of your loose ends. You've made it to the end of this tutorial and I hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, I'm very happy to help. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye!